Hello, and welcome to the Assessment Alchemist, the podcast where we transform the daunting world of assessments into a journey of empowerment and achievement for educators and students alike. I'm Tina Wiles, your guide in this quest to conquer test anxiety and unlock secrets of effective test preparation. So, in each episode, we'll mix the perfect blend of expert insights, practical strategies, and inspiring stories, all designed to help you turn test taking into a positive, enriching experience for your students. Whether you're a teacher, a school counselor, or an educational enthusiast, you're in the right place to create alchemy in learning and assessment. So let's dive into today's topic and discover how we can turn educational challenges into opportunities for growth and success. Welcome to the Assessment Alchemist. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today, we're going to talk about the assessment of attitude, conquering negative thoughts for test success. So, I am going to start a little bit about why stopping these negative thoughts is so important. And as you're sharing with your students or your kids, um, or even professionals that you know that are taking exams. I think you need to start with why the negative thought patterns that we can have are so detrimental to the outcome of the exam. Okay. And I'll often say, like, the stuff that we're going to talk about today isn't going to be like, "Oh, if you only have positive thoughts, I guarantee that you're going to do well on the exam." Not like that. But I could say the opposite. If you have negative thoughts, you're most likely not going to do as well on the exam as if you change those negative thoughts to positive thoughts. So the negative thoughts can hurt you and the positive thoughts can only help, right? So a lot of times I'm going to explain this by some examples. The When you have the negative thoughts going on in your head. So this is everyone has a voice in their head that they'll say things to them. And one thing with anxiety a lot of times will be that voice is usually negative that's talking, and it's extreme. Okay. To the point of like like we might say, like, why did I do that, or that was stupid of me. Okay. But this inner critic that some students have when it comes to testing can be saying things like I said, extreme. I'm going to fail. Why should I even bother studying? It's not going to go well. I always get these types of questions wrong. And my least favorite thing that I hear very commonly is, I never do well on tests. And you're right. If you keep talking like that, you're never going to do well on tests. I will show you one thing I saw on TikTok is I have a mini paper shredder. And what I'll do is when someone says something that's negative, I'll have them write it on a post it note. So if they write, I never do well on tests, then I make them actually shred it in front of me. So they're like, that's the last time that you're allowed to say that to yourself, right? Like, get it out of your vocabulary. You cannot talk like that. Um, but to help students understand what happens, why this is so detrimental, is the words have power. Okay. And when um, when words have power, if what we're thinking and saying actually can affect us. And one easy way to show students the power of words is to do a little research on someone named Dr. Emoto. And Dr. Emoto did an experiment. There's lots of videos on YouTube about it, but he wanted to see the power of words and what happens at a molecular level. And he, like I said, there's videos about it, but he did research where basically the gist of the research was he wrote words on bottles of water and then took pictures of drops of water from that bottle and looked at it under very high powered microscopes. And when he looked at it under the microscope, frozen, he could see the crystal structure, and the crystal structure of positive words like love and love, well-being, right? Like the positive emotions were beautiful crystals that look like snowflakes. And when you looked at like hate or I want to kill you written on the bottle, looked at those drops of water, the crystals made by those drops of water looked broken and ugly. It was just disgusting ones. So, of course, I had to do an experiment on my own. And again, you can see this all over YouTube. It's called the rice experiment. And what I did was I have two jars of, you can see I have love and hate. And I put the same amount of rice into both of the jars. On one jar, I wrote love, and on the other one, I wrote hate. And when you look, holding up to the camera here, when you look, the love, the water looks clear. You can still see that it's rice. When I hold up the hate, you can see the water is cloudy and you can't see the rice. It's like globby, like doesn't show up as nice on the camera, but it's like all broken down and disgusting. So that's a fun thing that you could do with some jars of rice and not even putting it in water, but just putting it in your classroom. You're supposed to talk positive, like, I love you, rice, you're so beautiful. And then like, I hate you, you're disgusting to the other rice. Um, and you might have seen this with plants that when you talk positive to plants, they're supposed to grow better. It's that same kind of concept. But then you tell students that even if this is not true, or only a fraction of it is true, our bodies are made up of so much water that if words have the power to actually change the crystal structure of molecules, like what when we're talking negative to ourselves, you could see why it's not going to help anything. It's we're made of water, and so it can hurt it. So um, I also talk to them about the energy of words. Like sometimes you walk up to someone and you're like, I've never spoken to you. And I just like the energy from you. I don't want to know anything about you. And then you might meet someone else and you're like, I've talked to you for 2 seconds and I feel like we're best friends. So the energy that people give, same as energy, like there's energy all around us. So explaining the negative thoughts like that, right? You're saying these bad things to yourself. Um, but is stopping those thoughts is so important. And when you have that dialogue going on in your head, um, it is like, so I'm the oldest of four kids, and my brother and I, to get on each other's nerves, one of the things we would do is if one of us was counting out loud, 1, 2, 3, like counting, like, I don't know, pennies or something, right? If the other person would start shouting out different numbers, like 7, 29, 3, 5, right? To try to throw the other person off from counting. Okay. Another example of this would be when you're driving or learning to drive or learning anything, like you turn the radio off or you have quiet around, right? Like you just need to focus. You can't have that dialogue. And when you are trying to listen to that dialogue of the negative stuff and focus on an exam, you can't do both at the same time. And so, what that means is that if you're listening to that voice, you're not doing well on the exam because you can't focus on it. Okay. Where if you're focused on the exam, you're not listening to the voice because you're focused on the exam. Now, one technique to stop these thoughts is actually called thought stopping. So this isn't something that they would just be able to do like out of the blue, like on an exam. This is something that has to be practiced. But anytime you have a negative thought, it's all about trying to catch yourself and really teaching yourself to not talk like that. So, um, have you could give them like post-it notes where they need to write it down, or like how to reframe some things. But really, as soon as you have that negative thought, like I am not going to do well on this test, almost like pretend like they're hitting a remote, or like hit pause, realize I just said I'm never going to do well on a test. Okay, so that's not good because I'm putting it out there, right? It's just like if you say, I hope I don't hit the next red light. You're going to hit the next red light, right? It's like you're putting it out there. So if you, or I'm already running late and I can't hit any red lights. Yeah, you're going to hit all the red lights. So it's like pushing pause, realizing what's been said, and then rephrasing it. Okay. So maybe, and it has to be true. Obviously, if they're just saying things that don't have any connection to them, it's not going to help the situation. So they could change it to, um, I didn't do well on my last exam, but I approached this exam differently. I'm going to do great. Or I changed how I studied. This one's going to go great. Or I asked, so I got support, right? So they have to change it to something that's true, but changing the negative and reframing it as the positive is going to help on the test. Okay. Some other things that you could do in addition to the thought stopping, is meditation is a great way to try to train some of your thoughts, and like realizing what thoughts are going through. Positive affirmations can also help with trying to like make sure you're putting positive spins on things. Is another way. I personally really enjoy Snoop Dogg's affirmations that he has. It's on a kid show. I can't remember the name of the kid show, but those affirmations can help. Um, Really just making sure that their attitude going into a test is one of confidence and empowerment instead of the stress and the negative thoughts. Um, and then one last thing that I wanted to talk about when it comes to conquering those negative thoughts is I had a group of students that I worked with in a charter school in inner city Chicago. And there was a lot of negativity around things that we were doing and things they were exposed to in daily life and things that would take place in the school. And so I did the rice experiment with those students. And it was so powerful, the impact for some of them, that when they some of them started writing like words on their water bottles, right? To like help with like love and confidence and like positive words on their water bottles. And they actually wrote on their hands a number of what their goal was to get on a test. It was the ACT, but they wanted to like embody the, if I like put it down and I believe it, that it's going to happen. And so that's just a fun thing that you can maybe implement in a classroom or with students to help out. Um, Quick podcast today. I hope you got some beneficial information out of it. As always, if you are interested in being a guest on the show, go ahead over to my tutor. That's my the number two tor.com/podcast, and you could fill out a guest information form on there, and we can touch base. And please feel free to share the podcast with anyone that you think that this might be beneficial to. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next week.